I recently took a 2-week trip to Australia, and it went like this. But let's start from the beginning. Weeks before the trip, I was in one of the biggest ruts of my life. I'm talking watching 10 hours of TV a day, stuffing myself with cookies, and trying to make everything feel better by partying. Yeah, it was not my finest hour. I thankfully already had a plane ticket and accommodations booked for Australia. So on February 13th, I packed my bags and hopped on a plane with a friend, bound for the land of kangaroos and hopefully many Chris Hemsworth lookalikes. I said goodbye to all my problems, especially the major problems I had, dealing with my emotions after my friend betrayed me, and typical boy issues and low self-esteem. I feel like they always say in school or in just life that running away from your problems will never help you. If anything, you're just making things worse. And yeah, that might be true sometimes. So, was this trip to Australia a bad decision? Well, let's find out. Once arriving in Sydney, my first destination, I was eager to get a taste of the city, so I spent the first day going on a 3-hour-long walk by myself around the area. The next day I did the same, and the day after the same. And before I knew it, I could not spend a day without one of these walks in Sydney. I still spent the majority of each day going on touristy day trips with my friend to see the famous Opera House, Bondi Beach, Blue Mountains, and Manly Beach. But I made sure to leave 3 hours a day, usually in the morning, for me time, to go and walk. On these walks, I discovered neighborhoods, peered into storefronts and restaurants, I people watched, I overheard snippets of conversations, I admired young people's fashion, and I thought about what life would be like if I was living in Sydney, Australia. This eventually got me thinking about, you guessed it, my life, and my problems I ran away from. Although I didn't have a full-on therapy session with myself on these walks, something about these 3 hours of calm time, alone, moving my body, got me into a state where I was ready to begin to face the past. This was my first sign that this trip to Australia was exactly what I needed. After a week spent in Sydney, I was sad to leave one of the most beautiful cities I have ever seen. But I was excited for my next destination, which was Gold Coast, Australia, known for the surfers. Wink. My friend and I spent the first day lying on the beach after having to wake up at the crack of dawn for our flight to Gold Coast. That day was nice and slow and relaxing. The next day, though, was one of my favorite days of the whole trip. A day spent in Byron Bay. Yes, Byron Bay, where Chris Hemsworth lives. Once arriving in Byron Bay after a 2-hour bus ride, my friend and I stumbled onto the main town beach, and she decided to have another relaxing beach day. I, on the other hand, was determined to walk all the way to the lighthouse, 1 hour from the town. This walk was brutal. It was over 90 degrees and the sun was scorching. But oh boy, it was worth it. The walk hugged the coast and I got to see some of the most stunning beaches in the world. I'm not joking when I said I was literally out of breath from the beauty. When walking by one beach in particular, I saw hundreds of surfers in the water catching waves. I decided to leave the walking trail I was on and head down closer to the shore. After getting as close as I could to the water, I stood and watched the surfers in awe. They were all laughing and smiling and having what looked to be the best time of their lives out in the ocean on their surfboards. It was something I have not seen in quite a while. Genuine happiness. which is kind of sad, but still true. I knew in that moment I wanted to feel what those surfers were feeling every single day of my life. And although I still haven't quite found what makes me feel that happy every day, I am determined to find it. This would be my new life goal. The last stop on my trip was Cairns, known for the world-famous Great Barrier Reef. When I planned this trip and decided to add on Cairns as a destination, I knew I had to try scuba diving or I would regret it for the rest of my life. So I did try it. But first, a little backstory about my swimming abilities. Yeah, I am a terrible swimmer, but I can doggy paddle. I go underwater about once every 3 years, so yeah, I was due for my next plunge. The day of scuba, my friend and I boarded a boat that would take us miles from the coast of Cairns out to the Great Barrier Reef. The entire boat ride there, I was shaking. I was extremely nervous, and no joke, I was gonna pee my pants. Once the boat was anchored and my name was called for scuba diving, I hurried into my wetsuit and flippers, trying not to think about having to breathe underwater for 20 minutes, 20 meters deep, where there are creatures that could eat me whole. I followed my instructor and down I went into the water. I mentioned the scuba diving was for 20 minutes long, and we were to go 20 meters deep. Well, the Ella scuba diving experience lasted about 2 minutes, and I went 5 feet deep. I failed. My instructor would not let me go deeper because I failed the goggle clearing technique 3 times. So I hopped out of the water, took off my gear, and went back to my comfortable seat on the boat. I absolutely hate failing, but that day I was okay with it. I knew that one day in the future, I would successfully scuba dive because I got over the hardest part, which was taking the first step and just trying. After telling you about some of the most memorable parts of my trip to Australia, I hope you realize how life-changing it was. My walks around Sydney, my encounters with the happy surfers, and my failed attempt at scuba diving all led me to getting out of that rut I was in for good. I had experiences that allowed me to reflect on myself and my life and push me out of my comfort zone. This trip was so much more than a distraction. It was a wake-up call that gave me a taste of what living feels like, which was something I haven't felt in a long time. All in all, traveling can be truly eye-opening, so I urge you all to take a trip somewhere and reflect on your life and have new experiences because I guarantee you will not come back the same person you were before you left. I hope you liked this video. Please like and subscribe. More videos to come. Love, Ella.